In my past life, my father was addicted to gambling, and my mother had to work 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Years of overwork broke her body. She became seriously ill, but we had no money for treatment. I cried and begged my aunt, my mother's younger sister, who had married into a wealthy family, to help us, but she drove me away like a beggar. "Look at you, filthy and pathetic. What if you dirty my carpet? Blame your mother for being cursed with bad luck. She deserved it. You both are just misfortune incarnate, kicked out of the hospital because we couldn't pay." I had no choice but to take my mother home, to die. But on the way back, a truck came speeding toward us. Both my mother and I were killed. Only after death did I learn my aunt had secretly tied a fate exchange system to my mother. That system granted 3 chances to alter destiny, and the result was my mother lost her college entrance results, the love of her life, and even her health. When I opened my eyes again, I had traveled back in time to just before my mother's university entrance exam. This is our new classmate, Tan Yi Wien. Let's give her a warm welcome. A smattering of claps echoed through the classroom. I immediately recognized her, my mother. She was completely different from everyone else. Wearing a faded, oversized shirt with 2 patches on the knees of her pants, her hair dry like straw, yet she kept her head down diligently, working on her assignment. I sat beside her. "Hi, I'm the new student. My name is Tan Y Huyen." My mother finally looked up at me. The first time I saw her youthful face up close, my heart tightened like it had been pierced with a needle. She was skinny pale, but her eyes still shone with a fierce longing for the future. So unlike the lifeless version of her in my past life, worn down to a husk by reality. "Hi, I'm Trangto." She hesitated for 2 seconds, then put down the pencil stub, barely 5 centimeters left. "If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me." She was still as kind as she had been in that past life. I'm someone who returned from the dead. In my previous life, my mother married a gambling addict. After I was born, he gave up completely gambling all day, and when he lost, he'd get drunk, then beat both of us. To raise me, my mother worked 3 jobs. Overwork combined with poor nutrition wore her down fast. Once she got sick, my father feared becoming a burden, so he just vanished, no goodbye. I had no choice but to beg my aunt, once a close sister to my mum, now a lady of a prestigious household, for help. But to my shock, she not only refused, she threw me out like garbage. "Look at those ragged clothes. If you mess up my floors, who's cleaning them? Blame your mother." She was born unlucky. Dying is what she deserved. Disgusting. With no money, my mother was kicked out of the hospital. I could only bring her home to die. But before we made it, a truck plowed into us. We both died. Only in death did I discover it was my aunt who had secretly bound a fate exchange system to my mother, a system that allowed her to trade 3 things. My mother was supposed to pass the college entrance exam. The man my aunt married had originally loved my mother, and the illness was supposed to be my aunt's. But using that cursed system, she stole everything from my mother, her academic future, her love, and even her health. And in the end, she still stood by watching her sister die. Now I've come back reborn and sent into the past. This time I will change my mother's fate. I'll take back everything that once belonged to her. Seeing me dazed, my mother sighed and lowered her head again to read. I snapped out of it and snatched the book from her hands. "Stop studying, Mum. Don't take the college exam." She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "What did you say?" "Don't you know the college entrance exam is the only way someone poor like me can change their fate? If I don't take it, I'll have no choice but to go back to the countryside and farm. I will never give up on this exam." I grabbed her shoulders, stared into her eyes, and said seriously, "Then have you ever wondered why, no matter how hard you study, your grades stay low? Meanwhile, Uyen never studies but always ranks top of the class." My mother's expression darkened, a flicker of sorrow in her gaze. "Maybe I'm just stupid. No matter how hard I try, I can't catch up to Uyen. She's always been smart, beautiful, and loved by everyone. My aunt was a year younger than my mum, always lively and clever since they were kids. Compared to my quiet, reserved mother, it was clear my grandparents favoured the younger sister. All the good food and fun were given to her first. My mum, she only got leftovers or things that were already broken, just like now. My mother still wore plain, outdated clothes, while my aunt strutted around in trendy new dresses, standing out like a star in the crowd. I shook my head. It's not that you're stupid. It's because Trang Uyen implanted a fate exchange system into you. No matter how hard you study, the good results will always end up belonging to her. My mother stared at me wide-eyed. What system are you sleep-talking? I told her everything about our previous life. When I got to the end, she took a deep breath, clearly shaken. After a few seconds of silence, her eyes turned sharp. Then who exactly are you? I avoided her gaze. I'm your good friend. I saw everything you went through. Now that I've been reborn, I've come back to help you. She still didn't believe me. I couldn't blame her. How could she believe that her own younger sister would do such a thing to her? I knew that just words wouldn't convince her. She had to see it with her own eyes. So I told her to come to my house that night. Although doubtful, she couldn't resist my serious expression and eventually nodded. That evening, drawing on memories from my past life, I used aloe vera to make a facial mask for her. She was surprised. What is this? It's cold and refreshing. Feels nice. But what does this have to do with that system you mentioned? I smiled to reassure her. Don't rush. Give it a few more days and you'll see. For the next few days, I kept taking care of her skin. My mother was naturally beautiful. She only looked worn out due to poor nutrition. After a few treatments, her appearance began to change. She was noticeably prettier. Sure enough, the next day, the moment she stepped into the classroom, all eyes were on her. Even the boys were stunned. Trang To, you look like a completely different person. You've really become beautiful. I used to think Trang Uyen was the prettiest, but now I see that Trang To has way more delicate features. My mother blushed from all the compliments, which made her look even more charming. Trang Uyen, who was always the center of attention, was furious to see her spotlight stolen. She glared. Sis, you should really focus on your studies. You already suck at school and now you're trying to seduce people, my mother stammered. I didn't. It's just that Wai Huyen helped me take care of my skin. I shot Trang Uyen a look. What's it to you? Are you jealous because Trang To's getting prettier? Hit where it hurt, her face turned pale with anger, but she quickly forced a smile. How could that be? We're sisters. I'm happy for her, really. Mum pulled me aside and whispered, Wai Huyen, are you sure you're not mistaken? Uyen doesn't seem like that kind of person to me. I signaled her to keep quiet. You'll understand tomorrow. Sure enough, the next morning my mother's face was suddenly full of acne, and her skin had gone back to being dull and yellow. Meanwhile, Trang Uyen's skin was flawless, glowing like a peeled egg, radiantly beautiful. The boys in class were instantly excited. Trang Uyen looks amazing today, way prettier than Trang To. Trang To's gone back to looking dull and dirty. An ugly duckling will always be an ugly duckling. She'll never compare to a white swan like Trang Uyen. Trang To didn't react to the teasing. She just walked straight over to me. My face suddenly turned like this morning. Now I believe you. I can't believe my own sister would exchange her fate with mine. She ruined my life in the last lifetime. I swear I won't let it happen again. I pulled an English book out of my bag and handed it to her. Here, try reading this when you have time. She blinked in surprise. This is in a foreign language, isn't it? But we don't even get tested on foreign languages in the college entrance exam. Why are you making me study this? I gathered up her usual study materials and nodded toward Trang Uyen. Doesn't matter how hard you study, she'll just steal your exam score anyway. Might as well spend your time learning something new. You never know when it might come in handy. She finally understood and took the English book, reading it carefully. From that day on, my mum gave up entirely on class. She no longer listened to the lectures, only focused on that English book, reading it over and over again. Naturally, her grades plummeted. She was calm about it, But Trang Uyen started to get anxious. She snatched the book out of my mom's hands. "What is wrong with you? There's only a few months left till the college entrance exam. Why are you wasting your time reading this nonsense?" My mother chuckled. "I'm not like you. I'm slow-witted. No matter how hard I study, I never improve. So I might as well cut myself some slack and learn something new for a change." Trang Uyen was furious and raised her hand to tear the book, but before she could, a large hand grabbed her wrist. We both turned around. It was Duong Li, the quiet top student in class. I looked closely at him, and suddenly a flash of realization struck me. Wasn't this my future uncle, the husband of my aunt in our past life, but this present Duong Li and the charismatic, well-dressed man I remembered from before were worlds apart. Duong Li was dirt poor, his clothes were patched all over, and he buried himself in books all day without saying a word to anyone. Whereas the man who became my uncle in my past life, he was funny, smart, well-educated, and most importantly, rich. I had never once thought they were the same person. Duong Li's voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. "You're not allowed to tear her book." Trang Uyen scoffed coldly. "And who do you think you are? Some ragged poor guy trying to play the hero? You ever looked in a mirror?" My mother couldn't hold it in either. "So what if he's poor? You've only just had a few warm meals and already forgotten where you came from. Or are you looking down on working people now?" At that moment, my mother's voice was full of power, sharp and righteous. The classmates around us started whispering and pointing at Trang Uyen. She couldn't take the shame. Face burning red, she stormed out of the classroom. Suddenly, I understood why Trang Uyen acted that way toward Duong Li. Right now, he was still so poor he couldn't even eat properly. She wouldn't bother sparing him a glance. But my mother and Duong Li, they shared the same hardships. They understood each other. Knowing he was hungry, my mum would often save a bit of her lunch to give him. Over time, their bond grew into love. Later, Duong Li passed the college entrance exam, built his career, and became increasingly successful. Trang Uyen, wanting to become a rich man's wife, stole Duong Li's affection from my mother without hesitation, turning him into her own husband. And my mother ended up marrying a gambling addict. My father. Having figured it all out, I knew exactly what to do next. Since Trang Uyen loved wealth and looked down on the poor, I'd find someone rich to fight her head on. Drawing from my memories, I tracked down my father from the past. Right now, he was still just a street punk. He whistled at me with a sleazy grin. "Hey, pretty girl, come play with me for a bit. I walk straight over. I've got a job." Yuan Tanhao instantly perked up. Well, didn't know you had it in you. What kind of money-making scheme we talking here?" I leaned closer and wrote 2 words on his palm, smuggling. Tanhao sucked in a breath. "Damn. If we get caught, that's jail time." I shot him a side-eye. "Coward. In this world, the bold survive, the timid starve." I raised one finger. "If you're brave enough, you can make at least this much in a month." Tanhao's eyes bulged. 1,000. I shook my head. 10,000. But whatever. I don't think you've got the guts. I'll find someone else. I turned as if to leave. Panicking Tanhao grabbed my arm. "All right, fine, I'm in. As long as it makes money, I'll do anything I held back the urge to gag. But once you've got the money, there's one thing you have to promise me." The plan I gave Tanhao was simple: sell cassette players. In the 80s, material goods were scarce. Even basic purchases required ration coupons. If you could smuggle in cassette players from Hong Kong or abroad and resell them, the profit would multiply several times over. Tanhao had been running the streets for years. He had plenty of shady contacts. Following my instructions, he quickly made a decent profit. Just as we agreed, he started showing up at the school gate every day, waiting to pick up my mother and me. Sometimes he brought imported chocolates, sometimes a trendy dress from Shanghai. Every day it was something new, something flashy, turning heads wherever he went. Rumors spread through school. Some wealthy boss was pursuing Trang To, planning to marry her. Duong Li started to panic. He was terrified my mother would get stolen by this gangster. "Trang To, I think we should focus on our studies right now." but my mum turned toward Trang Uyen, speaking loudly enough for the whole class to hear, I know, but he's just so persistent, always bringing expensive gifts. It's really hard to say no. Even just looking at Trang Uyen's back, you could feel her fuming. That day after school, Tan Hao came to pick up my mother again. This time, he brought a gold necklace gleaming under the sunlight. The moment we stepped outside the school gate, Trang Uyen rushed over and linked arms with my mum, smiling sweetly at Tan Hao. You must be brother Tan Hao, right? I'm Trang To's little sister, Trang Uyen. That gold necklace you've got is so pretty. Can I have it? Tan Hao said nothing. He simply lifted his hand, revealing a chunky gold watch and a massive ring. Trang Uyen's eyes sparkled like coins. This is for Trang To. Who the hell are you to be worthy of my necklace? There were tons of people outside the school. Anyone who heard that burst out laughing. Oh my God, Trang Uyen's confidence is off the charts. Asking for her sister's necklace. Seriously, but man, that guy's rich and loyal. Trang To really hit the jackpot. Humiliated in public, Trang Uyen's face turned tomato red. She glared at my mother and stormed off. My mum and I exchanged a glance. Looks like she took the bait. The next day after school, Tan Hao appeared at the school gate again, just like always, this time, holding a vibrant bouquet of roses. When everyone assumed he was going to give them to my mother, he walked straight toward Trang Uyen instead. He got down on one knee. Uyen, I like you. Will you be my girlfriend? In the 1980s, that kind of public display was shockingly bold. Students swarmed around to watch. The bigger the crowd, the more satisfied Trang Uyen looked. She glanced at me, and my mother laughing so hard her body bent forward. Yesterday you gave my sister a necklace, and today you're saying you like me. What's that supposed to mean? Tan Hao turned toward us and spat disdainfully. Yesterday I was blind. That's why I didn't see how amazing you were. But now I do. You've always been the one I liked. How could Trang To ever compare to you? Trang Uyen took the bouquet of roses. Fine, but you'll have to wait until I finish the college entrance exam. You know how good my grades are. I'm sure I'll get into a top university in the city. Tan Hao nodded eagerly. Absolutely. Once you pass the exam, I'll buy you a big villa in the city so you can live in luxury for the rest of your life. Trang Uyen beamed, grinning so hard it looked like her face might split open from joy. My mum and I couldn't help but laugh too. That was her last bargaining chip. On the outside, things looked explosive and romantic. But behind the scenes, Trang Uyen began forcing my mother to study seriously again. What she didn't understand was the Trang To, who once treated studying like her lifeline, had suddenly lost interest in books. Many times she scolded my mother, Trang To, are you not planning to take the college exam anymore? Your adoptive parents paid for your schooling so you could waste your time reading all this nonsense. Don't you feel guilty toward them? My mother kept quietly muttering vocabulary words under her breath, not even sparing her a glance. Like punching cotton, no resistance, no reaction. It drove Trang Uyen mad. That night I went home with my mother. The moment we stepped inside, we were greeted by my grandfather's furious roar, Trang. To, you shameless wretch, I paid for your education, and this is how you repay me, reading all this garbage. Are you trying to humiliate me? My grandmother pointed her finger in my mother's face and screamed, if I had known I would have drowned you in the piss bucket when you were born, ungrateful brat, worthless mutt. Seeing my beloved grandparents from our past life again, I still couldn't suppress the hatred in my heart. In our past life, my mother and I died in a traffic accident. The police contacted them to handle our funeral. Who would have thought my grandfather held a ghost marriage for us, then made tens of thousands from it? And my grandmother didn't even bother to come see us one last time. She just sat there playing mahjong like nothing happened. To hell with them, she said. Now that those nuisances are dead, all we need is Uyen. The girl has money and lives in a villa. Just as I was about to speak, my mother grabbed my hand and pulled me behind her, stepping forward to shield me. You say these things and your conscience doesn't ache. Who gets up at dawn to cook for you two? Who washes clothes and does all the housework? Has Trang Uyen ever lifted a finger? My grandfather snorted through his nose. So we let you do a bit of housework and now you're blaming us. And you say you're not ungrateful. I've heard everything from your sister. You don't even study at school. His voice turned cold and sharp. Then he said, to tell you the truth, I've already accepted a bride price from old Zhang in the village. Once you're done with the college exam, you'll be married off. I knew old Zhang, a one-eyed old man, single all his life, known for disgusting behavior in the village. He'd even been arrested for molesting young girls. My mother exploded in rage. He's old enough to be my father. Have you let money blind you? My grandfather raised his hand and slapped her hard across the face. Damn you! You dare talk back to me like that. Let me tell you, I'm your father. If I beat you to death, it's not even against the law. Trang Uyen pretended to be understanding, trying to calm the situation. Dad, maybe let her take the college exam first. Who knows, if she passes, she might earn even more money than the bride price. She rolled her eyes sweetly, her voice sickeningly gentle. If she doesn't pass, then we can still talk about marrying her off to old Zhang later. Right, Grandma clapped her hands with a loud smack. Still, that Uyen girl is the smart one. Why didn't we think of that earlier? Whether the other one passes or not, we don't lose anything. Grandpa nodded enthusiastically, his eyes full of praise. That's right, well said. Let's go with her plan. Trang Uyen turned to my mother with a sly smile. Sis, you better work extra hard. Okay, I heard old Zhang's not good at anything, except torturing people. Once everyone had left, my mother finally began to tremble violently. I hugged her tightly. Don't be afraid, I'll help you. Tears streamed down my mother's face. Both Uyen and I are their biological daughters. Why do they treat me like this? I sighed. Accepting that your own parents don't love you, that's a brutal lesson. Not long after she wiped her tears, her eyes sharp and determined as she looked ahead. I'm not afraid. I'll find a way. I won't let them crush me. That's right, Mum. Now that I've been reborn, I won't let your tragedy from the last life repeat again. Since that night of threats, my mother picked up her textbooks once more, studying so hard she forgot to eat or sleep. Seeing her diligence, Trang Uyen was completely reassured, openly dating Tan Hao without worry. Only, she didn't know that we had long since swapped all the textbooks for English materials. Now my mum could converse fluently with foreigners. Finally, the college entrance exam day arrived. Before entering the exam room, Trang Uyen deliberately came over and greeted her. Sis, be sure to try your best. If you can't get into a good college, you'll have to marry old Zhang. My mother glanced at her and replied coldly, Don't worry, I'd rather let you marry him than me. Trang Uyen froze for a second but forced herself to stay composed. She thought, what a pity. No matter how well you score, everything you have belongs to me anyway. The exam bell rang. Everyone began walking into the test site. The moment we confirmed that Trang Uyen had entered the exam room, my mother immediately tore up her admission ticket and walked away without a backward glance. At the airport, my mum rushed in, slightly breathless. I'm not late for the flight, am I? I shook my head, hugging her tightly for a long while. Of course not. Congratulations on starting your new life. In the final exchange, Trang Uyen had traded for my mother's college exam scores. After that, the exchange system lost its effectiveness, which meant from now on my mother would live a peaceful life. From the very first day I was reborn into this world, I had always been thinking of ways to make money. Only when I had enough money could I take Mum far away, as high as possible. During the days of the planned economy, I secretly went to the plaza every evening to sell socks, scarves, and small trinkets. Unexpectedly, sales were great. In no time, I had saved up a decent amount, the dream my mother could never realize in her past life. This time, I could finally help her soar. After arriving in the US, my mum and I rented a tiny basement apartment. The early days were tough, but she was someone who knew how to endure hardship. She washed dishes for a restaurant, but in the middle of the night she would return joyfully, as if showing off treasure, bringing back leftover food from customers. Yi Huyen, don't worry. We will build a life here in America, and she truly did. The restaurant owner discovered that she spoke fluent English and was honest and hard-working, so he promoted her to floor manager right away. After a few years working at the restaurant, we managed to save up a decent fund. One day she turned to me and said, Yi Huyen, I've thought it over. I want to start a business. I've had my eye on foreign trade for a while. There's real money in it these days. Without hesitation, I gave her all our savings. Go for it. I'll always support you. I have to admit my mum was truly born to be in business. Within just 3 years, her foreign trade company grew to over 100 employees, becoming a standout name in the Chinese community in the US. After years of living abroad, my mother began to feel a trace of homesickness. I knew clearly she still hadn't let go of Duong Li, because during the time I wasn't around, it was Duong Li who had brought a flicker of light into her darkest days. 3 days later, we returned to Nam Shua City. To find out how Duong Li was doing now, we made a point to visit her old teacher. The moment the teacher saw my mother, she was so stunned she could barely speak. Are you really the Trang To from back then? You've changed so much I wouldn't have recognized you on the street. Then the teacher sighed. As for your younger sister, her life's been tragic. That year, during the college entrance exam, she scored 0. I heard that after seeing her score, she went looking everywhere for you, but you had vanished into thin air. Later, she married a man who used to pursue her. Who would have thought he turned out to be a smuggler? Just when the crackdown began, he was arrested and sentenced to over 10 years in prison. Duong is still locked up in there. My mother listened quietly, face calm. Without the slightest ripple, miss, I'd like to ask about how Duong Li is doing now. The teacher adjusted her reading glasses, gave her forehead a light slap. He's doing really well. Now he's a lecturer at the local university. I heard other big universities from different provinces tried to recruit him, but he turned them all down. The closer someone is to home, the more hesitant they become. In the end, my mother didn't go see Duong Li. Instead, it was the local leadership, upon hearing she had returned from the US, who organized a special conference to honor her as an outstanding talent. That day, the auditorium was packed wall to wall. Everyone came just to see what this Chinese-American businesswoman looked like. My mother sat on stage, happily chatting with regional leaders and notable figures. They praised her as the pride of the hometown. The event's host even presented her with a trophy labeled Exceptional Talent. Her photo was plastered across the front pages of major newspapers. Her name rang out in glory. That was my mother, the woman I was truly proud of. But just as the event reached its climax, the anguished wailing of an elderly couple suddenly drew everyone's attention. Sensing something bad, I turned around, and sure enough, it was my grandparents and Trang Uyen. After nearly 10 years without contact, they had aged drastically. Grandpa's hair had turned completely white, and Trang Uyen no longer carried even a hint of her former elegance. Silver streaks ran through her hair, her figure bloated, and the tips of her cloth shoes were completely torn apart. Grandpa raised his hand, pointing straight at the stage, then started cursing my mother out loud. "Ungrateful child! Heartless traitor!" He jabbed his finger at her and roared, "You went abroad all these years and didn't send back a single letter. Your father and mother raised you through hardship, and now you come back and don't even set foot in our house." Grandma bawled even harder, snot and tears streaming down her face. To why won't you recognize your own family anymore? Do you know that since you left, I've cried so much I've nearly gone blind. We miss you so much. Trang Uyen turned toward the camera lens, wailing as if her heart would break. "Sis, I'm your real sister. Our whole family searched for you everywhere. It was so hard. Now Mum's health isn't good either. How could you not acknowledge your parents?" The media instantly caught the scent of scandal. All cameras swiveled toward my mother, director Trang. "Are they really your family?" Is what they're saying true? Did you really cut ties with your biological parents? Some members of the audience, unaware of the full story, took off their shoes and hurled them straight at my mother. You ungrateful traitor! Get out of here! You're nothing but a beast. You don't deserve to be human. Like a rock thrown into still water, 1,000 ripples spread. The crowd began picking up whatever was in reach and throwing it toward my mother, their curses growing increasingly vicious. You filthy animal! Not even a pig or dog would behave like you. Go back to America. We don't need a disgrace like you. Get off the stage! My mother clenched her fists so tightly the veins bulged her face, pale as death. All these years she had never once mentioned her birth parents or Trang Uyen. But I knew she had never truly escaped the shadow of her old family. She took a deep breath and grabbed the microphone. Since you're all here, let's lay it all out in front of everyone. You say you treated me well, but from the moment I could remember, I had to do everything in the house. Every morning before the sun even rose, I was up cooking and doing laundry. In the dead of winter, Trang Uyen wore thick, warm coats, while I had only a threadbare old jacket worn down to rags. My legs were so numb from the cold that I couldn't feel them for entire days. She held both hands up to the cameras. The scars on my hands came from frostbite as a child. And you just for a measly bride price you tried to marry me off to some 50-something-year-old man in the village blind in one eye and limping. If I hadn't run away that day, I would have been beaten to death by now. Grandpa clearly felt guilty, but he still tried to argue. Don't believe her nonsense. Our family has always been fair. Saying we wanted to marry her off was just to scare her into studying harder. We only did it for her own good. Trang Uyen pretended to cry, dabbing her tears with a handkerchief. That's right, sis. How could you slander our parents like that? They would never make you do housework. What you said really hurts them, I shouted from below the stage. Everything Trang To said is absolutely true. Not only that, Trang Uyen often bullied her at school. These people don't deserve to be called family. Trang Uyen sneered and shot me a look. You must be the one who took my sister to the US. Right, birds of a feather, huh? You say my whole family bullied her. Then where's the proof? The hall suddenly fell silent. Not a single person spoke. At that moment, someone stood up from the audience. I can testify. All eyes turned to the speaker. It was Duong Li. He looked at my mother, his gaze steady. I can testify. During all her school years, Trang To's family exploited her. She was only allowed to eat Trang Uyen's leftovers. Then a woman quietly stood up, slightly hunched. It was her old homeroom teacher. I can testify too. More and more people stood up. We can all testify. By now, the truth was too clear to deny. A bold person pointed straight at Trang Uyen and spat. With evidence right in front of your face and you still deny it. You people are the shameless ones. That's right, Director Trang being linked to this family is just plain bad luck. Thank goodness she had the sense to break away early. Why are you still here? Leave now or we'll call the police. The crowd surrounding the three of them grew larger and more aggressive. Realizing she couldn't hold out any longer, Trang Uyen quickly slipped away with the grandparents. The honor conference ended successfully. When my mother was about to leave, she noticed someone still waiting for her at the foot of the stage. I knew my place and slipped away. I don't know what my mother and Duong Li talked about that day, but from the brightness in her eyes and her joyful expression, I knew she was happy. It felt good. My mother not only had a successful career, but also found a man who truly loved her. Everything she once lost was slowly returning to her. The relationship between my mother and Duong Li progressed quickly. She told me Duong Li had turned down offers from other universities because he wanted to wait for her to return. But as their feelings deepened, my mother began to worry. One day, she asked me, Yi Huyen, if I married Duong Li. Would you mind? I was very surprised she asked that and instinctively denied it. Why would I mind? I'm hoping you two get married as soon as possible. She hesitated, as if wanting to say something more. I looked up at her. I'll be fine. I want to see you happy with my own eyes." She shook her head, swallowing back the words she was about to say. Her gaze turned somber. From that day on, my mother no longer went out on dates. Even when Dongli came looking for her many times, she ignored him. I asked her about it several times, but she brushed it off with vague answers. I thought maybe they were having a lover's quarrel and didn't pay much attention. Until one night she said she was going out to meet a friend, but by midnight she still hadn't returned. I grew anxious. I called her, but no one picked up. So I decided to go out and look. Unexpectedly, the moment I turned into our alley, someone struck me from behind with a stick. When I came to, I was tied up inside an abandoned factory. My mother was tied up beside me, and the person standing in front of us was none other than Trang Uyen. She saw me awake and immediately slapped me hard. My face burned like fire. Ever since you showed up, that bitch Trangto completely changed. She even went abroad and became some big boss. I ended up like this all because of you. Everything, it should have been mine. My mother panicked and shouted, "Trang Uyen, if you're angry, take it out on me. Leave her alone." Trang Uyen glared at her, her voice full of venom. "You think I'd let you off if you hadn't quit the exam? I wouldn't have scored 0. I would have been a student in a big city by now instead of this miserable wreck. Tan Hao got arrested, left my aunt with a mountain of debt. And the loan sharks. They're the kind that chew people up and spit out bones. They not only cleared out our house but treated my aunt like some object and sold her to a bar. Now she's not even human anymore, neither dead nor alive." My mother didn't back down and immediately snapped back. "If you hadn't personally triggered the exchange system, would there even have been an exam to get a 0 in? Since we were kids, you've stolen my beauty, stolen the man who truly loved me. And now you want to steal my college entrance exam results too. You made your bed, now lie in it." Trang Uyen's eyes were venomous, now filled with hatred. "So you knew all along. That means you two planned everything to trap me, didn't you? Fine. The pain I once suffered now, it's your turn to taste it. I'll drag both of you down into the mud. Make sure you never lift your heads again." She clapped once. From the shadows, a sleazy figure slowly stepped out, none other than Trong Ma Tu. He licked his lips as he stared at my mother, revealing filthy yellow teeth. The eldest daughter of the Trang family. 10 years ago, we should have shared a bed already. Never thought you'd turn out so beautiful now. This time, even if I die on top of you, you'll be willing, won't you? As he spoke, Trong Matu's disgusting hands began groping all over my mother. I couldn't move, so I shouted straight at Trang Uyen, "Tell him to get lost. I swear I won't let you off. I'll grind you into ash so you regret ever being born into this world." Trang Uyen grabbed my hair and yanked hard. "What's the rush? Once he's done with her, it'll be your turn. Tonight the two of you just enjoy yourselves slowly." That made Trong Matu even more excited. He rubbed his hands together, ready to rip my mother's clothes off. I screamed in panic. "Don't!" At that exact moment, the main door was kicked open. Light flooded the factory. Duong Li stood tall in the doorway. Police officers stormed in right behind him, arresting both Trang Uyen and Trong Matu. The charge of kidnapping carries a minimum sentence of 10 years. Her life was as good as over. My mother and I were taken to the hospital for a full checkup. Once it was confirmed we hadn't sustained serious injuries, I went to the next room to visit her. But just as I reached the door, I overheard my mother and Duong Li talking. "I can't marry you." Duong Li panicked. "Why not?" My mother closed her eyes, avoiding his tender gaze. "Because I don't want to lose Wei Huyen. If we're together, she'll disappear." That moment felt like falling into an icy pit. So, she had known all along I was her daughter. She was afraid that if she married Duong Li, either child from the future would vanish from this world. That's why she kept rejecting his love. I didn't think any further. I pushed the door open and walked in. "When did you find out?" My mother was startled, then gently smiled. "Since you were little, I had decided if I ever had a daughter, I'd name her Yi Huyen, wishing you'd always be joyful warm like the morning sun. So that was it. I thought I was protecting her, but I never realized she had been quietly loving me in her own way too. I took Duong Li's hand and placed it into hers. Then you should also know my only wish is for you to be happy. I'll always be by your side. 1 month later, I was the flower girl at my mother's wedding. Everyone was astonished, a flower girl that old. Only my mother smiled and waved me over. Life is never truly fair, but we get to choose how we face that unfairness. I was once the helpless child who watched her mother be crushed once, so desperate between life and death that I couldn't change anything. But when given a second chance, I understood no one can save us except ourselves. I seized that second chance, not just to protect my mother from a cruel fate, but to reclaim justice for the years she silently endured and sacrificed. With every step of our counterattack, I learned no matter how poor or lowly you are, as long as you have the will, you can walk out of the darkness and tear apart the destiny others tried to impose on you. Along the way, I also realized that sometimes blood ties are no longer sacred when trust is misplaced. And love, timely care, even just a hand held in despair can be enough to transform a woman from an ugly duckling into a proud swan. If life gives you a chance to start over, live strong, smart, and brave, not only to protect yourself, but to protect those you love. Because justice isn't something others hand you, it's something you must fight for.